Unit 1, Forerunners of Writing. Paleography, from the Greek word apaleos or the engraphing to write. The study of early as distinct from calligraphy, which is the art of handwriting. Paleographer endeavors first to decipher an ancient text correctly and then to assign date and place of origin for it. Jean Mabillon, a French monk, originated Latin paleography in 1681 when he published De Re Diplomatica, a study of the forms of official documents. Bernard de Montfaucon laid the foundation for Greek study with Paleographica Graeca 1708. The oldest surviving Greek literary papyri date to 300 or earlier. In contemporary usage, refers to handwriting or image on the walls or surface of public areas such as buildings, parks, toilets, and trains. They are usually political or sexual in content. A lover's pledge, a proposition, or obscene words. Development of handwriting and system of handwriting. Handwriting is the result of a very complicated series of acts being as a whole, a combination of certain forms of visible, a mental and muscular habits acquired by long, painstaking efforts. Handwriting is a visible effect of movements which is an almost unconscious expression of fixed muscular habits reacting from fixed mental impressions of certain ideas associated with script form. Physiological basis of handwriting production. Handwriting originates in the brain when mental pictures of letter and words is formed. The impulse of form a letter begins in the brain's writing center in the cortex. Physiological basis of handwriting production. The motor system controls the movement and posture needed of handwriting by contraction and relaxation of muscle. Message go to and from the muscles and brain via the nervous system. Handwriting is the result of such stored motor knowledge, and handwriting is meaning that it occurs at the extremities and involves fine motor activities as opposed to skill like walking, which is proximal knowledge of gross motor skill. Generally speaking, 4 groups of muscles are employed in writing. Those which operate at the joints of the finger, wrist, elbow, and shoulder. The delicate way in which the various muscles used in writing work together to produce writing form is known as motor coordination. The development of writing. Children learn writing by following the school copy or model after acquiring some degree of skill. 2. As speed increases, conscious designs and regularity begin to break down. In the course of trial and error, modifications are made simplification and elaboration, addition and omission occur. System of handwriting. Old English roundhand. At the first division, or that the early part of the century, retained the characteristic of the so-called Old English round handwriting, was in fact an Italian hand popular 1840. Number 2. Modified round hand, 1840 to 1860. The second American division is a modified round hand and includes, among others, the early edition of the Spencerian and the Payson, Danton, and a copybooks. 3. Spencerian 1860 to 1890. Third division, or what is commonly called brought forward an almost entirely new alphabet of letter forms and many other distinct and entirely new features. 4. Modern vertically writing. The fourth and last distinct writing change of the country from about 1890 to 1900 covers the development of modern vertically writing, an entire new style which will affect the handwriting of this century, with more or less force for many years. Other system of handwriting, the arm movement writing, the angular style.
Good day everyone. I will discuss identification of handwriting. How can we identify handwriting? Handwriting is a neuromuscular process that originates in the brain. Some researchers have called it brainwriting. This is the example of handwriting. Handwriting is also called brainwriting. In the legal sense, as it applies to civil and criminal litigation, handwriting identification seeks to establish the identify or non-identify of a writer. For litigation process, it is important to know whether the normal process as in my way. Principle of identification. The identification of handwriting is based on the proposition that people are all alike, people are all different. To be able to make a positive identification of a process. And another principle of identification, all handwriting are alike. If these were not so we would not be able to read another person's handwriting. All handwriting is different. Similarities and differences. Any two writings in the same language, and especially those based on the same writing system, naturally have similarities and when closely examined. And another similarities and differences, two writings by the same person to show some natural and inevitable variation in letter form, to which must be weighed, measured, noted, and accounted for by the expert. In the identification of handwriting, all characteristics of both the question and specimen writings must be considered. Why is handwriting identifiable? The fact that each person handwriting contains individual differences in the fundamental principle on which handwriting comparison are based and on to which testimony is given in and accepted by courts of law. There are some factors which must be considered in the comparison process. First, no individual can write exactly the same way twice. This is called natural variation, and reasonable amount of it is indicative of genuine writing. And second, compilation is that all writers have the ability to intentionally to alter their habitual writing characteristics to some degree. And third, there may be a superficial and pictorial resemblance in the writing of two persons. And while most handwriting is identifiable to the writer, not all of it is. For a variety of reasons, some handwriting is readable for a qualified conclusion at best, and some is not identifiable at all. Handwriting analysis. Graphology. The study of handwriting to determine one's personality traits is not handwriting analysis. Handwriting analysis to looks at to letter formations, connecting strokes between the letters, upstrokes, retrace, downstrokes, spacing, baseline, cubes, size, distortions, hesitations, and a number of other characteristics of handwriting. This is the example of handwriting points of analysis. What can be determined from a handwriting examination? A particular person is the writer of the questioned documents. A particular person is not the writer of the questioned documents. The questioned documents contains form or non-genuine signature. The method by which a signature was produced. The sequence of writing. Can you compare printed writing to cursive writing? Can right or left the hidedness be detected by examining handwriting? National and racial to evidence in handwriting. The first shapes of letters and numbers. There is a difference between American and British and other nations in way. Figure to 1 and 7 are made. European practice is to make 7 with an extra cross stroke and to add an upper stroke to the figure 1, to which American and British do not do. This is the picture of racial evidence in handwriting. The British English and American English. In another national and racial evidence in handwriting, method of dating Americans to make a date with numbers by putting down the month, day, and year to February 21, 1966 toward B writing, and 2/21/66 a European traverse the order of the first two numbers and write 21 to 266. This is the example of national and racial evidence in handwriting of method of dating, American logic and European logic. Spelling differences. There are different ways of spelling used between English and American. It will depend upon what kind of teacher a person had. This is the example of spelling differences to American English and British English. Example of American English na Tagalog, centimeter, center, color, concealer. And din sa British naman po, katalogue, centimetry. Ito po ang pagkakaiba po ng dalawang bansa ng spelling po. Punctuation marks. The usual quotation marks used in English language are not used in Spanish and French to make a dash. The word and phrases, the American says, "Do you have a pencil?" The British say, "Have you got a pencil?" Experience is necessary to interpret this fine distinction, but they might give valuable clue as to the national origin of the writer. And Unit 3, the characteristic of handwriting. Two categories of handwriting characteristic. 1. The class characteristics are those common to a number of writers and may result from such influences as the writing system study, family, associations, training, or foreign education, as well as carelessness and haste in execution. And then number 2, individual characteristics are those to which are highly personal or peculiar and unlikely to occur in combination in other instances. Quality elements or condition of anything is perhaps a better single descriptive terms than characteristics when used as a general descriptive terms in connection with the identification of handwriting. Characteristics. It's together seen as anything that may describe or characteristics may be technically correct. Elements refers more to the separate physical parts of a thing. Is also an appropriate descriptive terms in some connection preferable to quality. And then stroke the structure. Stroke the structure letter by letter comparison. And then number 1, initial stroke. This refers to the starting strokes. Formation to A, the upward initial stroke. And B, initial strokes with a birth stroke. And C, downward initial stroke. And D, initial strokes with the spur strokes. And E, cubed upward initial strokes. And F, initial strokes with flourishes. This is the example of graphology letter P. Stroke structure. Number 2, connecting stroke. The strokes that connects to letters in cursive writing. A, routed connecting stroke. The connecting stroke is routed. in appearance an almost copybook form by way of writing. Number 2, connecting stroke. Be elliptical or oval connecting stroke, kinds of connecting strokes, wherein the strokes are routed but closer. And C, the angular connecting stroke. Strokes show an angle formation shows a signature that is shorter in length or a short lateral spacing. This is the example of connection form. Terminal stroke, the last stroke in a signature. Formation A, upward tapering terminal strokes. And B, downward blunt terminal stroke. And C, the blunt horizontal terminal stroke. And D, tapering cube downward terminal stroke. This is the example of terminal stroke kinds. Applying or tapering terminal strokes to were in the wind of the stroke, diminishing in size as the momentum of writing ends. B, the blunt terminal strokes. These terminal strokes diminishes abruptly. In four, lobes. The lobes of a cursively writing letter by be symmetrical or it may be flat on one side and therefore be the hemisymmetrical. This is the example of loops. Eye lobes or eyelet. The small loop formed by stroke that extend in divergent directions. Number 6. Diacritic an element and then to complete certain letters. 7. Arcs or arcs, any arcade form in the body of the letter. And 8. To put a rudimentary cube initial strokes. 9. To blend ending beginning. To blend ending the end initial strokes are a result of the drawing process in forgery. And 10. To buckle knot the horizontal end loop strokes that are often used to complete such letters. 11. Central part or body, the part of the letter ordinarily formed by a small circle that is usually to list on the line writing. 10. Buckle knot the horizontal loop strokes that are often used to complete such letters. 12. Foot of the letter or over the lower portion of any downstrokes which terminates on the baseline. 13. The diacritic and elements are then to complete a certain letters. 14. To hitch the introductory to backward strokes added to the beginning and ending of many capital letters or small letters. Hawk or truth, the bent crook or cube on the inner side of the bottom loop or cube of a small letter. 16. To ham the rounded outside top of the bent crook or cube in small letters. 17. Spurs short horizontal beginning stroke. 18. To knob rounded appearance on the beginning or ending stroke. 19. To main stroke or shock stem, downward strokes if any letter. Skill level. Skill level can be described as an appreciation of beauty as applied to handwriting. High skill level to produce writing that include rhythmic, perhaps artistically embellished and insert pleasing to the eye. Low skill level to produce a product that is hesitating slowly executed by contained grotesque told repeated to letter formation. Form. Form is the force of the individual characteristic that will receive the document examiner's close secreting movements. This is the manner in which the pen moves in order to form a letter. Garland. Garland if the pen moves overhand or clockwise, other hand or counterclockwise, producing routine to letter formations. Arcade. And the pen moves underhand or counterclockwise, producing show to taunt letter formations. This is the example of arcade and garlands. And then this is the example of connection form. Kind of movements. The finger movements, two to hand movement, three to forearm or muscular movement, and four whole arm movement. And then alignment. Alignment is the relation of parts or the whole line of question, writing or line of individual letters in words to the baseline. That's all. Thank you.
Height ratios. Height ratios are a comparisons or correlations of the height of one letter or letter segment to another letter, usually within the same word or signature. One would expect all capital letters in the same writing system to maintain the same height throughout a body writing. However, the heights of capital letters in individuals' writing may vary from one letter to another. Capital K may always maintain a slight height advantage over a capital L or capital C or other letter. The same concept is likewise utilized in a comparison of lowercase letter or in a comparison of lowercase letters to uppercase letters. This combination of various ratios are often unique, individual, and habitual to specific writer. The I dot, a portion of writing as small and innocuous as a I dot may at times become a prominent identifying characteristic. I does not come in all sizes and shapes. They may be horseshoe shaped with the open end to the right, up, down, or left, or be simply dots, circle or dashes inclined up or down. Many teenage girl, they may be made in the shape of heart. The T-crossing. T-crossing occupy much the same weight or more for document examiner as the I dot does. A T-crossing may go from right to left or left to right. It may incline up, incline down, or be perfectly horizontal. It may be heavily shaded on the right or heavily shaded on the left. The T may be crossed at the top of the letter near the bottom or in the middle. It may be connected to an stroke from terminal letter of a word in has to attend by the individual to cross the Y without lifting the pen from the paper. Pen lips. Pen lip. Pen lip is distinguished from hiatus in that there is an obvious appearance of a gap within the gap in the writing. Generally, pen lips have little significant value because their frequency and location is largely governed by several conditions such as slow and carefully executed writing may have some many pen lips, while writing done rapidly will exhibit on open lip except those at the end of the word. The foregoing applies to extended writing. As regards to signature, many persons have fixed habits with respect to the occurrence of pen lips. While hiatus is obvious even with the naked eye, the presence of pen lips, especially when carefully placed at the end of the line, can only be established upon microscopic examination. Hidden or concealed pen lip done by the ordinary fluid ink is perceptible. However, the presence of the pen lip of ballpoint pen and pencil done with a great care is difficult to demonstrate. Pen lips of defective ballpoint pen can hardly be located and sometimes misinterpreted as hiatus. Hiatus is a gap between strokes. Speed of writing. Defective writing instruments may have an influence on the number and position of hiatuses. Most people have no fixed writing habits regarding the inclusion of hiatus. It is common to find slowly written specimen handwriting of particular writer with several gaps. while another specimens written shortly afterward, which is practically devoid of hiatuses. Therefore, hiatuses are included or omitted in the handwriting according to the whim of the winter. The presence of hiatuses is of evidential value depend on the letter between which the gap occurs. New writers usually raise the pen before the letters A, D, C, G, Q, T. Similarities of these are not evidence of identify without the accompanying other characteristics. However, the similarities in this practical and conscious characteristic are strong evidence of non-identified hiatus before letter I, E, V occur less frequent so that it is a feature of some individual value. A hiatus after letter W is also an identifying feature of normal value because this letter is always with a terminal spar and ideal connecting stroke to such letter are the extension of the spar. The absences of such hiatus are rare and therefore are the significant feature. Words preceded by capital letters will allow the presence of hiatus. However, not all capital letters are without gap. Speed. Pen speed is often an essential element of the examination process. As will be discussed elsewhere, fast, fluid pen movement is difficult to duplicate by a forger. The following comparison depicts many of the indicators of fast or slowly writing. Fast. Smooth writing movement. Elongated and misplaced I dots, T crossings. Words and initial connected. A flattened appearance. Lessened legibility. The following comparison depicts many of the indicators of fast or slow writing. Slow hesitation, tremor, more angular writing. I dots and T crossings in correct position. Sharp delineation between separate pen movements. Blunt stops and starts. Writing is made of individual letters and legible. Movements may be ornamental. Hesitation. The regular thickening of the ink line when the writing slows down or stops while the writer takes stock of the position is termed as hesitation. When a writer concentrates his attention on the movement of his pen point, reflex movement of the hand and arm muscles are retarded, and the fingers control the pen. Writing in this manner will lack fluency. The line is irregular and there will be smoothness and continuity of the instrument. Em- embellishments. Embellishments are most often located at the beginning of a letter, but may be throughout the written material. They usually take the form of an added movement that decorates the writing, such as swirls, added loops, concentric circles, flourishes, etc. Entry or exit strokes. The entry and exit strokes of a letter may repeat themselves in similar letter formations such U's and V's, or perhaps M's and N's, however they may be in the form of a beginning or ending embellishment or a continuation from one letter to the next. Entry and exit strokes can be habitual movements and therefore identifying characteristics. The same may be said for connecting strokes from one letter to another in cursive writing. Some connecting strokes may be similarly found in hand printing where letters are quickly written, creating bridge between them. Connecting strokes tend to allow the individual to be more creative in developing individual characteristics as they may have been emphasized to any great extent during the learning process. Retracting. Retracting is the process wherein the pen re-inks a written portion of the line, usually in the opposite direction, such as a downward movement followed by an upward movement over the existing line. While it usually is the natural part of the writing experience, if it occurs as a form of patching to correct the form of a letter, it may be indicative for forgery. Spelling and spacing. The simple act of misspelling word can of themselves in the combination to a specific individual. Take for example the case of a lithium seaman who in the body of one question document is spelled because shoes because shoes is scoosh, tennis sweater is sweater, and pajamas. The same spelling errors were found in standard material that had been dictated to the suspect without looking any further. The examiner already had a pretty firm grasp on who the writer of the disputed document was just from similar misspelling. Spelling and spacing. Spacing between adjacent letters or even word in a questioned writing may again display habitual characteristics of a specific writer. Format. The format of a disputed document may additionally be an identifying characteristics. Using a personal check as an example, one individual may use the 00 or XXX or perhaps 00 or 100. A person's, if used, also tend to be unique. In much the same manner, dates appearing on checks may be in the form of numeral days, months, and years, separated by dashes or diagonal lines, abbreviations of the months of the years, or spelling the month out in their entirety entirely may be habitual characteristic of specific writer. A writer asked to write exemplar material when the questioned document is a check may distinguish his writing admirably, perhaps even to the extent that a variable handwriting comparison is precluded. But he may then slip and duplicate the questioned format. While this is in itself may not be enough for an identification, it is often enough to couch an opinion in probability. Case. On occasion, a writer will use an uppercase for a letter in a place usually reserved for the lowercase form or vice versa. These characteristics, if found in both questioned and standard material, may be highly significant. Ancient. A front's maximum distance above the baseline. Baseline. It is the line upon which the letters of a front rest. Cap height. The height of uppercase letters. Cap line. The imaginary line which represents the uppermost part of the capital letters and some characters ascenders. Descender line. The lowest line that a character's descenders extends to, like the line beneath the lowercase j and y. Descenders line. The lowest line that a character's descenders extend to like the line beneath the lowercase j and y. X height. the height of a face's lowercase letter, or the size from mean line to baseline of lowercase of x. The lowercase of x is used from measurement since it usually sits squarely on the baseline and has no ascenders or descenders. Pen, pen position or pen pressure and shading in writing. It is well understood that what is spoken of as the point of an ordinary pen is really 2 points from by two pieces of metal called nibs lying close together and making one narrow mark when a stroke is made without pressure. Pressure separates in the nibs, producing shading, and the pressure necessary to separate in the nibs has a tendency to indent or disturb the fiber of the paper more or less, making the ink line heavier in their direct path near the edges of the stroke. It is impossible to hold a metal pen in any one position so that stroke at right angles to each other can be smoothly shaded to that both show the distinct and equal track of both pen nibs. From this fact, the pen position of the writing can positively be determined from the location of the emphasis or shading. Pen position in writing show many variation but vary in three principal ways. First, in the angle of the pen to the line or direction of the writing. And third, in the uniformly of pressure on the two nibs of the pen. One of the most personal but somewhat hidden characteristics of writing is that which, for want of a better term, is described as a pen pressure. The weight of hand, gradation of pressure, and placing of emphasis radically change the appearance of the writing as a whole without changing the form. The pen certain writers 1. Dances over the paper with a sparing rhythmic motion that leaves a characteristic records. 2. In other hands, the writing hand moves in a stately way that suggests strength but not speed, while as guided by other writer a pen. The pen certain writers. 3. Leaves an irregular broken line that record of a rapid nervous movement. 4. Record of the pen of still another class of writers leaves a heavy, uneven ridge line due to lack of a skill and constant variation in pen pressure. The main feature of these pen pressure characteristics are not consciously acquired and not intentionally put into a writing, and therefore are all the more significant and personal, and should always be most carefully considered examining a disputed writing. What is termed shading is that more obvious increase in the width or weight of strokes, which in many instances are in conformity with grow out of the system of writing followed. Shading should be studied with special attention to its 1. Form, 2. Intensity, 3. Frequency, 4. Skill, 5. Exact location. Shading habits in writing can be classified in general ways as follow. A. Persistent, A. Continuous, as on nearly every downward stroke. B. Rare, unintentional, or accidental. C. Graduated, controlled, smooth, and artistic as shown by gradual increase and decrease of pressure. D. Impulsive, explosive, bunchy, or the result of sudden and violent pressure. E. Freakish, a peculiar as only on certain parts of words or occasional letters. F. Raw or scratchy as crossed pen points. G. Lateral or mainly on strokes from left to right. Sub-pen shading or on stroke made back to the leaf, particularly at tops of letters. Arrangement, size, proportion, spacing, and slant writing. The habits of arrangement of the parts of a writing as finally developed are undoubtedly largely governed by the artistic ability or sense or proportion of the writer, and like all of the most significant writing habits are in considerable part at least developed and grown into rather than consciously acquired. The general placing of writing on a sheet or page and its artistic or inartistic appearance and balance or unbalanced arrangement of parts. The wide, narrow, mixed or ununiform spacing between lines, between words, between separate capitals and small letters in the same word. 3. Placing or locating of the word with reference to the baseline. I and E on the line above, the line below, the line of partly above and partly below. Presence or absence. Characters and infirmity of margins at left, at right, at top and bottom of sheets. Position of signature in relation to writing it follows. Horizontal uphill downhill curve or mixed direction of alignment or signature on line of writing. 7. Parallelism and width of spacing between of writing on envelope, addresses, or on unruled paper. 8. Arrangement of headings, introduction and conclusion of letter and their relation to each other and to the body of writing. Paragraphing and its frequency or its omission, and the average depth of indentation at beginning of paragraphs. 10. Arrangement of figure and abbreviation. 11. Interlineation and their characters, position, and frequency. 12. Envelope addresses and their size, style, position, and arrangement. 13. Connection or unbroken pen lines between words. 14. Number of words to a line as in telegrapher's writing. 15. Location of punctuation mark with relation to baseline and to the word which they followed. And 16. Underscoring and its location, frequency, and emphasizes. Habits of arrangement. In writing, and general habits of neatness undoubtedly reflect certain individual characteristics that are likely to be shown in whatever is done. Size and writing. A characteristic that may have little significance when applied to only one example or to a small quantity of writing like a signature, unless the divergence is a very pronounced. Spacing of writing. This is mainly changed by a change in the slant, in the length of the retracting of the upward or connecting stroke. Slant or inclination. Slant refers to the angle of inclination of writing or a letter of writing from the baseline of that writing. It may be forward and leaning to the right or backhand if it leans to the left. Slant would have little or no significance in connection with a traced forgery inquiry. Proportions. Proportions generally refer to the symmetry or individual letters. Using the letter B as an example is the top bulb. Kinds of writing. Cursive or conventional. Most part are joined together. Script, disconnected style. Block style, capitalized or printed.
Good morning, everyone. This is my report. My name is Michael B. Gutierrez from Bscrim 322. Unit 4, the natural variation of handwriting. Handwriting is a free-form activity, and there are an infinite number of ways to write even the simplest letter combination. It is highly unlikely that any person will write his her own exactly the same way twice in an entire lifetime. Diyan po ay yung bawat tao may kanya-kanyang paraan ng pagsusulat. Tulad natin, hindi magiging pareho ang bawat sinusulat natin. Variation in genuine writing. It is true that genuine writing by the same writer does vary, and in an examination of question writing, the space of the subject will always receive careful attention. Sabi nga kanina, iba't iba ang bawat paraan ng pagkakasulat. Kinakailangan ng atensyon lalo na kung question writing. Writing varies as speech varies. It may be large or small as speech is low or loud. It may be careful or careless, like speech, but both methods of human expression finally come to be settled habits of the individual acquired by thousands of repetition of the same act. Diyan naman po ay may iba't ibang kahulugan ang pagsusulat. Tulad ng pagsasalita natin, minsan malakas, mahina, mabagal, mabilis. Variation in genuine writings are ordinary in superficial parts, in size, proportion, and the degree of care given to the act. Writing as a whole process is very much more fixed than is generally thought to be, and is in fact one of the most permanent and unconscious of human habits. Yan nga yung iba't ibang kahulugan ng pagsusulat. In examining a collection of specimens of handwriting, certain conspicuous variation at once attract our attention. Sa one naman design to ay size, 3 proportion, 4 slant, 5 shading, 6 vigor, 7 angularity, 8 roundness, 9 artistic quality, and 10 direction of stroke. Sa pag-aaral ng specimen ng handwriting, may mga dapat pagbatayan. Una ay design, ito ay kung paano sinulat. Pangalawa, size. Kung size ay pagbabasihan, maraming specimen ang pag-aaralan base sa laki o pagsulat. Slant naman ay nakakapekto ang posisyon kung paano ang isang tao ay nagsusulat. Shading, ito ay yung diin ng pagsulat. Vigor, ito naman po ang pagbibigay ng force sa pagsusulat. Yun. Next na tayo. Variation in genuine writing. Fundamental variation that deserve special attention is an analysis of writing is that of angularity or roundness. Diyan naman po ay yung isa sa mga dapat bigyan ng atensyon sa pag-analyze ng writing ay ang stroke at connection nito. Individual variation in handwriting. It has been said that any two objects larger than molecular size contain variation, and so it is with handwriting. We never write anything exactly the same. Every time we write slightly different, sometimes a little larger, sometimes smaller, faster, slower, more angled, less angled, and on. Our individual characteristics will be slightly different each and every time we pick up a pen. Sa pagsusulat natin, depende sa sitwasyon dahil minsan napapabilis ang pagsulat at napapalaki, minsan napapaliit. External variation in writing. Some individuals' handwriting will display little difference in individual characteristics from the time that their any number handwriting had measured. until the time they go to the grave. Most individual handwriting will undergo moderate or the radical changes throughout a lifetime. Diyan naman po ay sa pagtagal ng panahon, nag-iiba ang pagsulat natin dahil sa ating katandaan o paghina ng ating mata, hindi na natin masyado nakikita o hindi na masyado nakapagsulat ng ayos. Tremor. Tremor are rhythmic movement of part of the body caused by involuntary rhythmic muscle contraction. Ang tremor naman daw po ay sa Tagalog ay panginig ay ang di inaasahang paggalaw ng parte ng katawan ng tao. Halimbawa ay pag-iba ng laki ng letra o pagtagilid nito dahil sa panginig habang sa pagsusulat. Tremor. If standard writing is smooth and stroke and shows no tremor strokes, then the presence of tremor is an alleged forgery is very suspicious in itself. In this tremor alone, especially when wrongly placed, may be very strong evidence of forgery. Yun naman po ay kung pagsusulat ay walang pinakikitang pagbabago, dapat na mas pag-aralan dahil ito ay maaaring maging isang tinatawag na pamimeke. Kinds of tremor. Tremor of prod. The characteristic of tremor of prod are inequality in movement and any place in any stroke. With strokes too strong and vigorous combined with weak, hesitating strokes, also frequent interruption in movement, unequal distribution of ink on upward as well as downward stroke, and especially the varying pen pressure. Naman po ay dahil sa panggagaya para mandaya, nagkakaroon ng tremor at ito ay mapapansin sa bawat pagsulat. Pwede na makopya pero mababatid din ito kung pagmamasdan. Tremor. The presence of tremor is an alleged forgery is very suspicious in itself. In this tremor alone, especially when wrongly placed, may be very strong evidence of forgery. Yun naman po ay kung pagsusulat ay walang pinakikitang pagbabago, dapat na mas pag-aralan dahil ito ay maaaring maging isang tinatawag na pamimeke. Kinds of tremor. Tremor of prod. The characteristic of tremor of prod are inequality in movement and any place in any stroke. With strokes too strong and vigorous combined with weak, hesitating strokes, also frequent interruption in movement, unequal distribution of ink on upward as well as downward stroke, and especially the varying pen pressure. Naman po ay dahil sa panggagaya para mandaya, nagkakaroon ng tremor at ito ay mapapansin sa bawat pagsulat. Pwede na makopya pero mababatid din ito kung pagmamasdan. Tremor of age or of extreme weakness. Characteristics of tremor of age of extreme weakness usually show unusual and erratic departures of the line from its intended course of prompt recovery, and a general indication of muscular weakness and of movements beyond the control of the writer, particularly in the downward stroke. Dahil sa dahil sa pagtanda, nagkakaroon ng tremor sa pagsusulat sa panghihina, kaya't minsan ay mas ginagamit ng paraan ay makipag-usap ang pagsusulat, lalo na kung hindi na mapagsasalita pero sa bawat sulat ay may panginginig. Disguised handwriting. This is one in which the person has made a deliberate attempt to remove or modify all or some of his normal writing habits. Yan naman po ay sa disguise handwriting, ginagamit to halimbawa sa pangkopya ng pirma para sa cheque, blackmailing, death threat, at paghingi ng ransom. Intended writing or second page writing is the impression from the writing instrument captured on sheet of paper below the one that contains the original writing. Sa intended writing naman, dito yung pagkuha ng impormasyon kung saan sinusulat ito. Halimbawa, may dalawang papel na magkapatong, kung sakali na nawala ang nasa ibabaw, maaring makita ang impormasyon susunod ng papel gamit ang carbon paper o lapis. Mas maganda kung madiin ang pressure ng pagkakasulat nito. The individual who is attempting to disguise his or her handwriting is trying to produce a convention that they are not consumed. Ito naman po ay tao na gumagaya sa pagsulat ng ibang tao. Some of the common methods by an individual attempting to disguise are easily recognized. Writing very large or very small, writing very fast or very slow, an exaggerated slant or the writing with the offhand, embellish, unnatural or unnecessary addition to letters, grotesque letter forms, heavy pen pressure, combination of any of the preceding. Yan naman po ay yung sa paggagaya, madali na makita ang kanilang maling pagsulat dahil nang ito ay sobrang laki o sobrang liit, mabilis at mabagal na pagsulat, sobrang diin na pagsusulat, kakaibang paraan ng pagsulat. Yun lang po.